The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. I appreciate you being here. I'd like to go back to Project Gunrunner and Operation Fast and Furious. You said that in just the last few weeks is when you'd heard this. The President made statements to this in a report on Univision back on March 22nd. Were you aware of this operation before the President or after the President made those comments?
My guess would be probably before the President.
Who briefed the President about this? He obviously knew something about it. He made a statement about it. Who briefed the President?
I don't know.
Who would typically, who would do that? If not the Attorney General, who would brief the President on this?
Well, I mean, we have a White House contacts policy so that the Justice Department interacts with the White House counsel's office. Now, I don't know what process goes on from the White House counsel within the White House.
Let me move on. Are you familiar with the President's comments then on March 22nd? He said, quote, "There may be a situation here in which a serious mistake was made. If that's the case, then we'll find out and we will hold somebody accountable." Would you agree with that comment or not agree with that comment?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Would you agree that there were some serious mistakes made in this situation?
I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things that we're trying to investigate. That's what I've asked the Inspector General to look at to see.
Now, it's been reported that at the death of Brian Terry, one of our Border Patrol agents, that there were guns from the operation found at that scene. Is that in dispute?
I don't know that to be factually accurate. I don't know. I've heard that. I've asked the Inspector General to look into that, and I'm awaiting that report.
Is there a scenario if those guns were found at that scene where is there a possible scenario where mistakes weren't made, and yet we have guns at the scene of the death of one of our Border Patrol agents?
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think if those facts are in fact accurate, I suspect that mistakes in fact were made.
Now, this program was approved by the Justice Department. My understanding is in January of 2010. I guess I'm struggling to understand why an operation as big and as large as important as this has not come to your attention for more than a year after it was originally authorized. Can you help me understand that?
Well, I mean, you have to understand. I mean, it's something that is big. You've described as big. In comparison to all the other things that are going on in the department at any one given time, might not seem quite as large. I have, as I said, 114,000, 115,000 employees, the FBI, the ATF, the DEA. A whole variety of things that we've talked about here today.
I guess my concern is here's an operation where we're knowingly allowing more than 1,500 guns to go across the border, maybe with good intention, but obviously with consequence that is unparalleled. I'm just not aware of us on a regular basis allowingly and knowingly allowing guns to be put in the hands of bad guys. And now we got, I just don't understand why that doesn't come to your attention. My understanding is that they're receiving task force money, and these types of programs and task force must be approved at some very high levels, including the level of Deputy Attorney General. Is that, who did know about this? Who did authorize this? And when did they authorize it?
Well, again, that is part of what the Inspector General will be looking at. Who exactly was involved, what the level of knowledge was, who should be held accountable if, in fact, there were mistakes that were made. That's what the Inspector General will be looking at.
So it's not, is it your intention to not comply with our subpoena because the Inspector General is doing that? Or do you believe, that is, are you precluded from complying with the subpoena because the IG is looking into it, or can you do both simultaneously?
We can do both simultaneously. What I've asked is that with regard to replying to the subpoenas that that we try to minimize the impact on the ongoing cases. It's not the Inspector General report. And we've tried to come up with ways in which we will make information available to the committee in a timely fashion and not harm those ongoing investigations.
The ATF office involved in this was evidently the Phoenix office. Are there any other ATF offices that you're aware of that may have been involved or engaged in this?
Involved in?
In the Project Gunrunner or Operation Fast and Furious, or was it just the Phoenix office?
I don't know.
Okay. Let me move to a different issue, if I could, in my short time here. I just recently went down to the border with Mexico. I think one of the statistics that the Border Patrol puts out there is that they only have 15% operational control. What do we need to do to secure the border? Because I was shocked and surprised. I mean, I went for hours in places right along the border where there's nothing more than a barbed wire fence, cut in many places, and never even saw Border Patrol agents. So we're pouring a lot of resources into this, but what, from your opinion, do we have to do to actually secure the border? Because it's not happening.
Well, I think that, the situation along the border is better now than it probably ever has been, which isn't to say...
But how do you assess that? How do you come to that conclusion?
Well, you base it on the number of people who are stopped, the amount of drugs we recover, the number of guns that are...
So if that stat goes up, if the number of apprehensions goes up, is it better? Or is it, if the number of apprehensions goes down, is it better?
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on a whole bunch of things. It's certainly a function of the number of people we're trying to get in. It also is a function of how effective our enforcement efforts are. Which is not to say that there aren't issues, still problems along the border. And I think we have to do all that we can to secure our border. And I think that one of the ways in which we do that is to really look comprehensively at this whole immigration question.
No doubt. I think that we got to fix legal immigration, do a lot of other things. But the statistic of apprehensions, if it goes up, are we doing a better job securing the border? Or if apprehensions go down, are we doing a better job securing the border?
As I said, that's a difficult one to answer.
I know. That's why I asked you.
Yeah. Well, you can say that if we are apprehending more people, that means we're stopping more people coming through. On the other hand, if we're getting fewer people, it's entirely possible that our enforcement efforts are working and fewer people are trying to get in. It's a difficult question to answer.
I, at some point, would love to know the answer to that question, Mr. Chairman, but thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.